Hi, I'm Beth from Sew Country, and I'm so excited to get to participate in the Moondance Sewing Marathon today. This pattern is from Sincerely Jen. She's one of my favorite pattern designers, and this pattern is just as fun, quick, and addictive as everyone has said it would be. So I'm really excited to show you my version of it. During these videos today, you will see so many wonderful creative ideas of how to hack this pattern, new ways to look at this pattern, and things like that. I am not the best at being super creative, so I'm going to kind of keep my video in lines with what I'm good at, and that is just going through the steps, breaking everything down, and helping you to feel prepared, motivated, and ready to sew this pattern. Once we understand the basics of a pattern, then that's whenever we feel comfortable with going ahead and creating and doing different things to it. So let's get started looking at this pattern, and let me tell you the one hack that I will be doing on this pattern. So with this pattern, it is a raw edge pattern, which means for my version, we are going to use vinyl. All of my vinyl will be from J&R Edwards in both this version and the version I'm making. There are hacks to doing a cloth version of this pattern, and if you would like to see that, just let me know in the comments and I'll definitely do a tutorial for that one as well. The only hack that I will be doing in this video is adding pin loops. The way I'm doing this one is I'm doing 3 of them, and that also helps to serve as a way to keep your notebook closed. For my first one, I did these a little too far apart. If you can see, the pin doesn't fit quite as well through there, so I'm going to add them a little bit closer spaced together. But I thought this was a cute way to keep a pin close and also to keep my notebook closed. Just to be completely honest, it is a little tricky getting your pins in there, so be aware of that. It's not like you just slip it in really quick. You do have to just take your time to fit the pin through each loop. So that will be the only hack that I'm doing on this pattern. Everything else, like the inside, I'm doing exactly the way the pattern is written. So let's look at the inside. When I open it up, I'm going to have the slot right here. This is where I fit my notebook inside. On the other side, I have an angled pocket, and then I have another small pocket here at the bottom. That's all there is to this pattern. It comes together so quick. And that's what makes this pattern so addictive, is how quick it comes together, but still it's cute and it is functional. You can use it for so many different things. So let's look at the pattern pieces that we're going to need to complete this and then go through the steps. So with the version I'm sewing up today, this will be the main piece that I'm using. That's going to be this outside cover piece. If it's directional, you'll want to make sure to keep that in mind. Both of mine are directional, so whenever I'm adding everything, I will make sure I keep it orientated the way I want. So this is vinyl, like I said, J&R Edwards. I sew everything on my domestic machine, so this vinyl is definitely domestic machine friendly. With this pattern, since you're not going to be turning anything, you're kind of constructing everything, it's okay if you have some vinyls that are a little bit thicker or stiffer if you want to use it, but I'm choosing to use this one, which is extremely domestic machine friendly. On this piece, your main piece, what you're going to do is you're going to attach 2 pieces of firm stabilizer. For mine, I chose to use Decaville Heavy. You do not have to use Decaville Heavy if you do not have it at home in your sewing room. I have seen other people use different things. You could use Peltex. You could go to the dollar store and buy those plastic cutting board sheets and put those in here. You could use very firm cardboard to do it. The thing is you want it to be a little bit firm and stable so that the notebook cover has just a little bit of substance. It's not just flopping around everywhere. It can hold that notebook and you can hold it in your hand and you can see it's not just bending completely down. Be creative if you do not have Decaville Heavy. If you have any questions, put them in the comment below and ask me, like, hey, what do you think about using this? There's so many options to use. With Decaville Heavy though, you do have the benefit of knowing that it is very firm, it'll work easily, and you can iron it in place. So on Decaville Heavy, there is one side that has glue. I take my iron, I iron from this side. I do not ever put an iron on vinyl. It will melt, but the Decaville Heavy can handle that. So I place it this way. I put my iron right on top here, and I just move it around. I make sure that I'm careful around the edges, that I do not let my iron hit the edges of the vinyl, and this interfaces perfectly. If you are nervous with using the iron, or if you're using the plastic cutting mats from the dollar store, you can use glue. My favorite glue, which you will see me using in this video, is this Beacon 3-in-1. I use it in almost all of my sewing projects. It's just really quick, and this for me is the replacement of double-sided tape. I like to use this because I feel like it's cheaper, it's easier to work with, and I never have to worry about it gumming up my needle. Once it dries, there's no stickiness there. So this is what I'll be using instead of my double-sided tape. So this is all you need for your outside. You can see the pattern tells us exactly how far and where to place this Decaville Heavy, but you measure from your sides and your bottom, and then this spot will be left open so that it closes easily. For the next piece, I'm going to use that same vinyl and cut this strip here. This strip will be what goes in the middle, and if you look at my other one, you can see it just adds that little bit of contrast. That is the piece you will want to use for the middle. I do suggest that it is different colors than these two pieces, just for like a better visual look, but you could use it all monochromatic and have it all the same way. For the next thing we're going to look at is these two side pieces. So we'll have one here and one here. You can see that one of these will be the one that we cut the slot in to make the holder for our actual notebook. The other one will be the one that holds your angled pocket and the other smaller pocket. Just like I did with that other piece of vinyl, I'm going to attach a firm stabilizer to the back of this one. The pattern tells us the measurements to cut this piece. If you do not have Decaville Heavy or Peltex to fuse on the back of this, I don't suggest the plastic cutting board for this piece. You could use a piece of thin but firm cardboard if you have that. But the thing is you do have to cut a slit through this, and I think it would be really challenging and maybe even a little bit dangerous to have that sharp plastic piece here, because you could get hurt on it, or it could be difficult to cut through. I don't know. Use your best judgment on that one. But the pattern also tells us how far down to interface this piece of firm stabilizer. The next thing it tells you to do is where to draw your line for where you're going to cut this piece. I like to start out by using this tool. This is just a hole puncher that I got on Amazon. I think when I bought it, it was about $10. It may have risen in price now. But what I do then is, once I have that measurement, I just take this and I just punch out a hole on each end of that line. The reason why I do this is because I'm going to use my rotary cutter and my ruler to cut on this line. Having these holes here not only makes it look a little bit prettier on the outside. Let me show you the finished one of it. You can see it just looks cute, if you can see that there, a little more professional. But it also gives me the perfect place to stop so that I don't go too far. So when I'm using my rotary cutter and the ruler, I can go from one dot to the next, and it's a little bit more security that I don't overcut. I'm not going to cut this on camera just because then I would have my ruler on this pattern piece, and I don't like to do that just for integrity of the pattern. So I will cut this off camera, but I will lay my ruler on this line that I drew, and I got this measurement from the pattern, and just cut that. That'll be the only thing I do to this piece. Once I have that piece, I'll just lay it down right here, matching up my sides. The other piece I'll match up on the other side. I'm going to then have my angled pocket piece. This is the only pattern piece you have for this pattern. Everything else is just given to you with measurements, but you will have to print out this piece. For this piece, the pattern will tell us how far down and how far over we're going to place it. The same thing with that bottom pocket. I did decide to add my label. I just used rivets to put it in place there. And so that was just a little way to make it a little bit fancier. I thought a little bit prettier. And then I will put that pocket right there. Only other thing I have left is for my pin loops. I'm choosing to use fold over elastic. This is, I think, 5/8 of an inch wide, and I just cut these into 2-inch strips. I'll show you how I do those, but I'll have 2 on one side and 1 on the other side. And that is all the pieces we need, and basically that's how it's going to go together. Super quick, super easy. So now that we know the pieces, now that we've talked about the materials, let's go ahead and start sewing this up. So I went ahead and cut the line in this one piece here with the stabilizer for the notebook holder. We don't add the stabilizer or cut anything on the other piece. It just stays as it is. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take out these 3 pieces of my fold over elastic, and I'm going to go ahead and attach them right away so I don't forget about them later since it's not in the pattern. So I'm going to take everything off. And since this isn't a pattern, I'm just going to kind of do it rough. I'm only going to put 1 on this side, so I just measured halfway, so found the halfway mark. I'm going to take this, and I'm just doing it very basic. I'm just going to fold it in half, wrong sides together, and I'm just going to put a little bit of glue and just kind of glue that down right there. When we sew all around this, that will be the actual securing stitch. So this glue, if you want to use double-sided tape, you could do that as well. If you wanted to sew the ends using a basting stitch, you could do that as well, but I'm not too worried about that. So whenever I add this glue, I'll just add a little bit right here. Just a drop or 2. You don't want to do too much because you don't want to take forever for it to dry or anything like that. I'll just set it right in there. I'm going to add just another little bit of glue right there on the top to kind of hold the 2 pieces together. And that's the start of that pin loop. That's all you need to do. The glue dries really quick, but I'm going to go ahead and put a clip there just to hold it in place to help it dry the way I want. On this other side, I'm going to put 2 of these pin loops. And so what I did was I found the center mark, and then I just measured about 1 inch out, and I'll put 1 there on each side the same way. So while I'm waiting for those pin loops to dry, I'm going to take this center piece. I will make sure I have it the correct orientation, and I am just going to glue it down right here in the center. It's pretty easy to find the center of this, but if you're concerned at all, you can use your ruler and make a line or whatever. I'm adding quite a bit of glue here just so it stays really nice and secure. Always check your glue with your vinyl. There has been some vinyls that are really thin, and it has, like the glue has came through on the other side and damaged it. I know this one is safe because I've tested it and I use all of their vinyl, so I know that, but definitely always check on things like that. Okay, so I have that centered on. I make sure everything's going the right way. Both my directional prints are orientated the same way. The next thing we need to do is to take the piece where you've cut the slit for your notebook cover. Now you do not, whether you're using double-sided tape, whether you're using glue, you don't want to put it here and then glue it down, because then you couldn't get your notebook in there. It would be adhered and it wouldn't be able to do it. So I'm just going to put a little bit on the sides so that it'll hold it in place until we stitch around. That's all I'm doing. I'm going to match up the raw edges. I'll start here at this corner and just kind of go up pressing everything down. If you're like me and not the best at cutting or things, you can always trim everything up with a rotary cutter at the end. You can also edge coat at the end too if you would like. I'm just adding a few clips here to the top and the bottom just to kind of secure that in place. I'm not sewing it yet. I'm just getting it situated, and I'll sew them both at the same time. So let's pull out that other side. And what we're going to do is we're going to start working backwards. So first thing we'll do is we'll sew this small pocket onto the angled pocket. Then we will attach this pocket, the angled pocket, to this bigger piece, and then we'll add that piece to the actual notebook. The pattern tells us where we place this small pocket. You're going to be measuring from the side and the bottom. You can use glue or double-sided tape, but where it's just a small piece, I really don't even feel like we need a clip, but I'll go ahead and add a clip just to make sure I don't mess this up, since I will be doing it on camera. I'm going to thread my needle real quick. So this is the way it should look. We're going to start sewing here, go down this side and across the bottom and back up. So basically a U shape. You definitely can pull your threads to the back and tie them off if you want to do it that way, or you can be lazy like me and just back stitch here. You even, if you wanted, could just do rivets around the four corners. Whatever you feel like doing, and that's the thing, once we learn the basics of this pattern, your mind will start working for all the different ways you can be unique or creative with it. I've seen people use clear vinyl for this pocket, jelly, whatever, just to make it look cute and fancy and unique. So let's sew around these three sides to attach this small pocket to the angled pocket. I'm choosing to use a white thread. I almost always use a white thread. Occasionally I'll use a gray or a beige. I don't know. I need to get better with changing threads or making prettier thread choices, but it is a bad habit of mine to just always choose white. I have my stitch length at a little over 3. I never sew fast, so I'm a very slow sewist. I just kind of enjoy the process. I don't try to rush it too much. I always keep an 1/8 of an inch foot on my machine, and so for me, I'm just basically keeping the edge of the foot right against the edge of the vinyl of this small pocket. I don't watch the needle or watch my stitches. I just watch this edge of the foot to make sure I keep everything straight and even. Anytime I'm in a class, I always tell the students, you never watch your needle. You're not worried about what your needle's doing. You're always watching your foot to make sure your seam allowance stays nice and straight. Okay, trim my threads on that. Then I take that bigger piece. If yours is directional, make sure you have it orientated the way you want. The pattern tells us again where, according to the sides and the bottom, this piece should go. Clip it in place. You could use double-sided tape or glue again, but you would just want to use it on the edge. You definitely want to keep this pocket open. So if you put double-sided tape or glue here, that would kind of defeat the purpose of it being a pocket. I'm going to start stitching here at the top. I'm going to go down, over, and then I'm going to go up to this little angle right here and stop, leaving my pocket completely open on the side and the top. Again, I'm going to use that same stitch length. I'm also going to use that same method of keeping the edge of this foot right up against the edge of the vinyl. My machine is one of those machines that whenever it stops sewing, the needle is always down, so that makes pivoting so easy on the corners. Tying your threads back definitely would give this a better look. Just I'm lazy. No need to try to act like I'm anything different in the sewing room. But you can see how cute and how quick that comes together. I'm taking this piece, and just like I did with the other piece, I'm going to add just a little bit of glue on the sides. And then what I'll do is I will attach it in the same way along the sides and the bottom. The glue or double-sided tape really isn't necessary since it's such a small pattern and not a lot of moving parts. It's just a little bit of extra security I do. Now what I want to do is I want to kind of look at it and make sure everything looks even, everything's matching up. I feel comfortable with everything because at this point we're ready to do our final stitching. We're going to stitch all around the perimeter. So all four sides we're stitching. After we do that, then we're going to stitch down these two sides here. Since this is a raw edge pattern, I'm going to try to be very precise with my stitching. I'm going to try to go slow, make sure everything looks nice. I do have the option of trimming everything up at the end, which I always have to do with cutting. Since I don't use a cutting machine, I cut everything by hand. It's always, I'm a little off here or there, so I will have to even everything up. Starting at the top, I'm just going to back stitch and then go ahead and sew all the way around this. When I'm sewing this, I'm keeping a firm pressure on this so that things don't shift, and also so that things are laying smooth. I find sometimes if I don't do that there might be a pucker or something and it'll be kind of bulky, but holding this down kind of helps me to get the best sew possible. Going across these loops here, this is the part you won't really be able to trim much, so I always try to make sure that I smooth it out and make sure it looks even and straight before I sew over it. We will be able to trim around some of the edges, but of course we wouldn't want to trim around the edge with the pin loop because then we would cut our pin loop. I'm not sewing through the Decaville heavy, I'm just sewing right up against it, and that's going to be the best thing to have a nice top stitch on this. You could sew through the Decaville heavy, but I don't want that. I want just that edge right here sewn so I don't lose any of my notebook. So mine's really about 1/8 of an inch away, which is perfect with this foot. I'm going to be really careful whenever I'm doing this last set of stitches to match up. I never want to start like too close to the edge. I like to start kind of in the middle because I want to give myself a little bit of room in case I'm off with my pivot, that I can meet those previous stitches so that everything looks really nice. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the 2 rows of stitches down these long parts. I'm going to just put my needle right where the previous stitches was. I don't need to go above that anymore, and that's where I'll start my stitching. Keep your foot lined all the way around that raw edge. My vinyl's a little stretchy. You can see it trying to pucker, so I need to make for sure that I'm doing that technique where I'm holding things down and helping it feed through the machine properly so that that stretch doesn't keep pulling down at the end. I'm left with a big bump. I definitely have some trimming up to do, so I'm going to use my scissors and just trim all the edges that have overhang so that everything looks really nice and neat. This is always the hardest part for me. Sometimes I will do this at the cutting board with my rotary cutter, but for this one, since I'm on video, I'm just going to try to do it with scissors. You definitely would get a better, like straighter, smoother cut if you used your rotary cutter and the cutting mat. At this point, the only thing left to do is to choose if you want to use edge paint. I'm not using edge paint. I'm not the best with it. I've used it a couple times and I always make a mess like everywhere and mine never looks great. I should definitely practice more with my edge painting. It is finished. It looks perfect. I love it so much. This one, I like the pin loops, better now that they're closer. You can see the difference there. I like this one much better. I have thread to trim right here. So let's talk a little bit about the different things you can do with this. You could definitely put a contrasting piece right here for like the spine. So if I would have chose blue and put a piece right here, that would have been a really nice touch to it. There is a way to put the pin loop right here in the middle so you can have your pin inside. So many different ways. There's different sizes of this pattern. This is just one quick version to get you started with sewing it up, to get you familiar with the pattern so that you can start making your own. I love this pattern. I love all of Sincerely Jem patterns. They're all amazing. You can find a link to this pattern. You can find a link to the vinyl. All of that will be listed in my description. And just for a quick thank you, I want to give a shout out to Lauren Mormino. She's the one who started doing these sewing marathons. She started them on New Year's Eve with the Necessary Clutch wallet. And it is a great way to come together in the sewing community to have fun, to help us learn, to help us connect with each other. So thank you, Lauren, for starting these, and thank you for all that you do in the sewing community. Thank you to Sincerely Jen for letting us use this pattern, and thanks for all the people that are making the videos today. I really appreciate everybody coming together so that we can just all have fun and be inspired, and I hope to see you guys make one of these. If you do, tag us in it in the Sincerely Jem face group and let us know that you watched our tutorial and you had fun, and hopefully we'll be doing another one soon. Thank you so much, guys, and I hope you have a great day sewing and creating.